I salute you all, dear visitors. Today we're going to continue talking about the biggest man trap in all history. This is the way Baron Vladimir Harkonnen put it in his conversation with his mentat Peter. I highly recommend anyone who hasn't yet watched the first part of this video to go watch it right now. Still, I'll make a small recap here and refresh your memory if you have watched the previous part, or even if you haven't yet watched it, I'll tell you what it was all about. So in the previous video, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, his mentat Peter, and his protege Feyd Observe, they all open up their emotional sides. They look at the Baron's plan from more an emotional point of view. We see where Peter is coming from. We see that Feyd Observe is not yet really interested in the events that are about to happen soon, and we also see the Baron's point of view on the whole situation and on the necessity of going through with his plan. Whereas if you listen to the end of this video, you'll learn other aspects of the Baron's plan to trap the Duke. I would say more logical aspects. The whole plan will be revealed in full detail. So let's start and let's continue reading this scene. Peter spoke in a low, sullen tone. "Did you call me in here to impair my efficiency with criticism, Baron?" "Impair your efficiency? You know me better, Peter. I wish only for my nephew to understand the limitations of a mentat." "Are you already training my replacement?" Peter demanded. "Replace you? Why, Peter? Where could I find another mentat with your cunning and venom?" "The same place you found me, Baron." "Perhaps I should add that," the Baron mused. "You do seem a bit unstable lately, and the spice you eat." "Are my pleasures too expensive, Baron? Do you object to them?" "My dear Peter, your pleasures are what tie you to me. How could I object to that? I merely wish my nephew to observe this about you." "Then I'm on display," Peter said. "Shall I dance? Shall I perform my various functions for the eminent Feyd?" "Precisely," the Baron said. "You are on display. Now be silent." He glanced at Feyd Observe, noting his nephew's lips, the full and pouting look of them, the Harkonnen genetic marker, now twisted slightly in amusement. "This is a mentat, Feyd. It has been trained and conditioned to perform certain duties. The fact that it's encased in a human body, however, must not be overlooked. A serious drawback that. I sometimes think the ancients with their thinking machines had the right idea." "They were toys compared to me," Peter snarled. "You yourself, Baron, could outperform those machines." "Perhaps," the Baron said. Well," he took a deep breath, belched. "Now, Peter, outline for my nephew the salient features of our campaign against the House of Atreides. Function as a mentat for us, if you please." "Baron, I've warned you not to trust one so young with this information. My observations of—" "I'll be the judge of this," the Baron said. "I give you an order, mentat. Perform one of your various functions." "So be it," Peter said. He straightened, assuming an odd attitude of dignity, as though it wore another mask, but this time clothing his entire body. "In a few days, standard, the entire household of the Duke Leto will embark on a space and guild liner for Arrakis. This guild will deposit them at the city of Arrakeen, rather than at our city of Carthage. The Duke's mentat Thufir Hawat will have concluded rightly that Arrakeen is easier to defend. "Listen carefully, Feyd," the Baron said. "Observe the plans within plans within plans." Feyd nodded, thinking. This is more like it. The old monster is letting me in on secret things at last. He must really mean for me to be his heir. There are several tangential possibilities, Peter said. I indicate that House Atreides will go to Arrakis. We must not, however, ignore the possibility that Duke has contracted with the Guild to remove him to a place of safety outside the system. Others in like circumstances have become renegade houses, taking family atomics and shields and fleeing beyond the Imperium. The Duke is too proud a man for that, the Baron said. It is a possibility, Peter said. The ultimate effect for us would be the same, however. No, it would not, the Baron growled. I must have him dead, and his line ended. That's the high probability, Peter said. There are certain preparations that indicate when a house is going renegade. The Duke appears to be doing none of these things. So, the Baron sighed. Get on with it, Peter. At Arrakeen, Peter said, the Duke and his family will occupy the residency, lately the home of Count and Lady Fenrir. The ambassador to the smugglers, the Baron chuckled. Ambassador to what? Peter asked. Your uncle makes a joke, Peter said. He calls Count Fenrir ambassador to the smugglers, indicating the Emperor's interest in smuggling operations on Arrakis. Feyd turned a puzzled stare on his uncle. Why? Don't be dense, Feyd, the Baron snapped. As long as the Guild remains effectively outside Imperial control, how could it be otherwise? How else could spies and assassins move about? Feyd mouth made a soundless "oh." We've arranged diversions at the residency, Peter said. There'll be an attempt on the life of the Atreides heir, an attempt which could succeed. Peter, the Baron rumbled. You indicated... I indicated accidents can happen, Peter said, and the attempt must appear valid. But the lad has such a sweet young body, the Baron said. Of course, he's potentially more dangerous than the father, with that witch mother training him, a cursed woman. Well, please continue, Peter. Hawat will have divined that we have an agent planted on him, Peter said. The obvious suspect is Dr. Yue, who is indeed our agent. But Hawat has investigated and found that our doctor is a Suk School graduate with Imperial conditioning, supposedly safe enough to minister even to the Emperor. Great stories set on Imperial conditioning. It's assumed that ultimate conditioning cannot be removed without killing the subject. However, as someone once observed, given the right lever, you can move a planet. We found the lever that moved the doctor. How? Feyd asked. He found this a fascinating subject. Everyone knew you couldn't subvert Imperial conditioning. Another time, the Baron said. Continue, Peter. In place of Yue, Peter said, we'll drag a most interesting suspect across Hawat's path. The very audacity of this subject will recommend her to Hawat's attention. Her? Feyd asked. The Lady Jessica herself, the Baron said. Is it not sublime? Piter asked. Hawat's mind will be so filled with this prospect, it will impair his function as a mentat. He may even try to kill her. Piter frowned, then... But I don't think he'll be able to carry it off. You don't want him to, huh? The Baron asked. Don't distract me, Piter said. While Hawat's occupied with the Lady Jessica, we'll divert him further with uprisings in a few garrison towns and the like. These will be put down. The Duke must believe he is gaining a measure of security. Then, when the moment is ripe, we'll signal you and move in with our major force. Go ahead, tell him all of it, the Baron said. We'll move in strengthened by 2 legions of Sardaukar, disguised in Harkonnen livery. Sardaukar, Feyd breathed. His mind focused on the dread Imperial troops, the killers without mercy, the soldier fanatics of the Padishah Emperor. You see how I trust you, Feyd, the Baron said. No hint of this must ever reach another great house, else the Landsraad might unite against the Imperial house, and there'd be chaos. The main point, Piter said, is this. Since House Harkonnen is being used to do the Imperial dirty work, we've gained a true advantage. It's a dangerous advantage, to be sure, but if used cautiously, will bring House Harkonnen greater wealth than that of any other house in the Imperium. You have no idea how much wealth is involved, Feyd, the Baron said. Not in your wildest imaginings. To begin, we'll have an irrevocable directorship in the Charm Company. Feyd nodded. Wealth was the thing. Charm was the key to wealth. Each noble house deepened from the company's coffers whatever it could under the power of the directorships. Those charm directorships, they were the real evidence of political power in the Imperium, passing with the shifts of voting strength within the Landsraad as it balanced itself against the Emperor and his supporters. The Duke Leto, Piter said, may attempt to flee to the new Freeman's Come along the desert's edge, or he may try to send his family into that imagined security. But that path is blocked by one of His Majesty's agents, the planetary ecologist. You may remember him, Kynes. Feyd remembers him, the Baron said. Get on with it. You do not drool very prettily, Baron, Piter said. Get on with it, I command you, the Baron roared. Piter shrugged. If matters go as planned, he said, House Harkonnen will have a sub-fief on Arrakis within a standard year. Your uncle will have dispensation of that fief. His own personal agent will rule on Arrakis. More profits, Feyd said. Indeed, the Baron said, and he thought, it's only just. We are the ones who tamed Arrakis, except for the few mongrel freemen hiding in the skirts of the desert, and some tame smugglers bound to the planet almost as tightly as the native labor pool. And the great houses will know that the Baron has destroyed the Atreides, Piter said. They will know. They will know, the Baron breathed. Loveliest of all, Piter said, is that the Duke will know too. He knows now. He can already feel the trap. It is true. The Duke knows, the Baron said, and his voice held a note of sadness. He could not help but know. More is the pity. The Baron moved out and away from the globe of Arrakis. As he emerged from the shadows, his figure took on dimension, grossly and immensely fat, and with subtle bulges beneath folds of his dark robes to reveal that all this fat was sustained partly by portable suspensors harnessed to his flesh. He might weigh 200 standard kilos in actuality, but his feet would carry no more than 50 of them. I am hungry, the Baron rumbled, and he rubbed his protruding lips with a brilliant hand, stared down at Feyd through fat and folded eyes. Send for food, my darling. We will eat before we retire. And here this classical scene ends. Now let's have a small discussion of this piece. There are quite a few things that should be noted here, and especially for those of you who haven't read the book or maybe who have no plan to read the book yet, but have watched the recent Dune movie Part 1. You see some of the characters and scenes that are present in the books were done differently by the director, by the producers, and sometimes it's not always for the worst. Sometimes there are obvious and objective reasons why this is done in a movie. The most obvious reason being the necessity to save screen time, which is not a bad thing in itself, but still some of the colors, some fragrances of the characters, of the scenes, landscapes, worlds that are created by authors in their books are sometimes lost. And what I'm trying to do is to give you this lost perspective, to show it to you, to shed light on it. So this particular scene, it actually reveals, or at least it nods towards the possibility of some very interesting happenings and facts. We can certainly draw some conclusions, we can certainly see some interesting connections, some of which may not be so obvious, especially when you have only watched the movie. But let me give you an example. Let's start with Lady Jessica. You have probably noticed that a big part of Baron's plan, described by Peter, is the fact that Lady Jessica will play the role of a red herring, so to say. So she'll be the one who is the most suspected by the Duke Leto's mentat Thufir Hawat when the Baron's plan will start unraveling. And this is actually, in my opinion, a critically important part of the Baron's plan, because its effect is twofold. First, as Peter rather rightfully states, it will make Thufir Hawat lose his concentration and pivot his attention towards what is practically a red herring, a person who has nothing to do with any conspiracy, with any kind of treason, Lady Jessica, who was actually faithful to Duke Leto from the start, despite her connections to the Bene Gesserit sisterhood. As for the second reason, it's very simple, but nonetheless very, very effective. It will keep Lady Jessica herself occupied. You see, when time is short and all she can do, all her efforts, all her attention is aimed at trying to clear her own name, she's practically removed from play. And thus two of the most dangerous figures that may disrupt the Baron's plan, that may actually help Duke Leto to win in this, are neutralized in one clever move. So as you now probably see after hearing my explanation, this gambit with Lady Jessica was not really given any attention in the recent movie, but is actually a very interesting plot detail. Another thing that should be noted is the role of Kynes, of Liet Kynes, in the movie and even in the book itself. When you start reading scenes with Liet Kynes, it's quite clear that he is an Imperial employee, planetologist, holds an office of arbiter of succession in regards to the change of Feyd. But the interesting piece of information that's revealed about Dr. Kynes in this scene is that Piter and Baron seem to firmly believe that Kynes will not just perform his usual duties, but that he will directly assist them in overthrowing Duke Leto. And more than that he will use his connections with the Freemen to thwart, to close the possible escape route that the Duke and his family might have with the Freemen. And that makes this character even more interesting and diverse. Because when you know that he may have been a part of this plan, that he may have known about this whole trap from the beginning, and then he starts helping Duke's son and his concubine, that reveals something different in his character, that shows that in Paul Atreides and his mother, he probably found a way to realize his own and his father's ecological dreams, so to say, to realize the new future for the planet, and that makes him change sides. You see, that's a wholly different narrative for this character. He's not he or she, because in the movie it's she, but that doesn't matter that much in terms of what I'm saying. So you see, this character in the movie is shown to be that kind of an employee, an Imperial employee that doesn't know about a trap at all, has no idea how, for example, Imperial Sardaukar came to the planet and started assaulting Duke's forces, but he decides to change sides because he sees that the Emperor is evil, that the whole situation is not right, and so he decides to help Paul and his mother. Of course, there's also a small notion of a kind of superstition that Kynes believes about Paul, and that Kynes sees that Paul might be the one from the prophecies, and that also may have influenced him to help Paul and his mother. But still, you see, that's not the same character and definitely not the same idea and not the same story. In my opinion, the book version, at least the fact that the book nods towards the possibility of Kynes knowing about the whole plan from the start, I think that version is much better, and it's a pity, it's really a pity that it wasn't shown in the recent movie. Okay, that's all for today. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed both parts of this video. Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be glad to read them. Tell me who do you like the most out of all the characters in that scene and why. And also, I'm very grateful for each like and subscription of yours, so keep it up. Thank you.